So AI kind of figures into my first question here because with generative AI emerging so strong, the idea of people in public relations being focused on numbers or collecting data, like impressions for crying out loud, that's starting to shift. And now I'd say we're in a world where this move toward a stronger advisory role, it's a this move toward a stronger advisory role. It's now adapt or die.
Yes.
How do we make that shift?
And I love the statement you say when it's adapt or die. I remember about 5 years ago, I was doing a little bit of work in an organization around change. And in one of their canteens, I think it was, there was a poster up on the wall that it says change or die.
Mm,
And I went, wow, I think that's just a little bit too full on. But I think you're right. The
mm.
reality is, if we do not change as public relations and communication professionals in this new world of AI, we will become irrelevant. When AI can produce the information, the communication, the press release, all of these things, people will move to it. Now, we will always say as professionals, nobody writes as good as we can do. The reality is, nobody has the context. AI gets close to writing really well, but it does make some shit up, right? It
Yeah.
really does.
It hallucinates. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, are we on kids' time? I shouldn't have said shit.
No, shit is
But
perfectly acceptable on this network.
okay, great, fantastic. But this is the thing that we're dealing with AI. Is it's not so much us that says, wow, it's not as good as I would put together or whatever. But we've got to collaborate with AI because our organizations and the people within our organizations and customers will be using AI to produce their communication. And so that fight for relevance has never been more to the fore than it is now in this environment with AI.
Okay. So that means we're in a land of opportunity here
Absolutely.
and risk. As you think through those, what are the main opportunities here, short term, next 5 years, as well as the risks if we don't change?
So, and in fact, I just got off a call before, which was our AI forum at the center, and we have this get together once a month with communication professionals to talk about the things that concern them with AI or the opportunities they've been using in developing AI within their organizations. I think the biggest opportunity that we have is being part of the development of AI and AI tools. Because if AI tools are being used for communication, why are we not part of that development? Because most of the development's done by the tech people.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got all of these biases and you've got all of the where it's pulling sources from and what data it's collecting. We need to be part of that conversation to be able to inform how a tool is developed and therefore then deployed within an organization, which is a much more strategic context rather than, oh, my organization has put in this new tool. So wouldn't it be better and more valuable if we were part of that as communication professionals? So there's one opportunity. The other opportunity I think that is really clear is being able to have a conversation with the executive of the organization about AI and its use within the organization. So that advisory role becomes quite critical because there's a whole layer of ethics and governance, biases, understanding of the different audiences that we have within our organization and our customer base. And it's all valuable information that we have. So can we collaborate with the organization to advise them on the use of AI from a communication and PR standpoint? So I think they're two really big opportunities.
Is it? Go ahead.
Take on, and I'll talk about risks in a minute. You've got a question in there.
Well, so I'm wondering if you think it's going to be easier or more difficult for younger people in PR to stake their claim. Here's why I think it might be harder. Because how do they assume an advisory role coming out of college or university at 22, 24, 25 years old, and they don't have 30 years of corporate living experience, right?
Yeah.
And I suppose I could flip that around and say, well, maybe there's also an advantage here in that they don't have all the old habits that you and I have. So easier or harder?
Oh, but I think you've nailed it in terms of there's an opportunity, but there's also a risk, certainly for younger people coming in, because that open mind to explore and unpack and play with those tools and having a greater insight because they've grown up with these AI tools now means that they've got so much value to add in the organization in terms of that insight. I think for the older communication professionals, it is absolutely going to be about that strategic advice and that sound. So I think there's a real complementary skill that can come out of organizations having both the more seasoned professional, but the young and up and coming PR professionals working together to really get under the hood when it comes to AI and AI tools. I think some of the risks that we have for AI, and just going back to the question before, is that there is a real risk of not keeping up. And what I mean by that, so it's kind of a kind of a blanket statement. But how that is shown, you see some of the government entities now and some organizations are literally locking AI down. And they're saying, well, we don't do AI because, our IT department have not really, got their head around it and therefore we cannot use it. The real risk is our publics are using AI outside of the firewall of an organization, but they're using organization content. So they're bringing that in and they're playing with it in their environment, and then they're putting it back into the organization. So it means all of this data is then going out into the wider world. And what we're not doing is having those conversations with the organization, the early conversations around governance of AI. How can we be using it now, even though it's locked down? You can't just say it's locked down and we're ignoring it. It's locked down, but your people are still using it. So what the rules around that while you're getting your head around? So we can't kind of fight the fact that IT departments need to speed up and get your security or your cybersecurity in place and then start using AI. But we kind of have to say we need to start having these conversations now as PR professionals to work with organizations even when they're locked down from AI, because it's already happening.
I actually had a chance to work for a firm that was creating natural language processing software specifically targeting accounting firms. And that's where I became quite acquainted with the entire move within the accounting world to get away from being the numbers collector to an advisory role. And it is the exact same thing that we're talking about here. I would only say the conversation has been happening for way longer in public relations. So I know there's going to be some pushback here. There are going to be people who resist this. When we talk about shift to advisory, we're talking about shifting PR metrics from simple outputs to outcome-based analytics focused on sentiment and behavior, because that's how humans operate. How do you think PR pros can make that transition effectively, and what new tools or skills are they going to need to be able to deliver on them?
Yeah. Look, I can't help but say, being part of the Center for Strategic Communication Excellence is that we have to focus on being strategic in our communication. And that means the same with measurements. And we've been espousing for years that we've got to move from the output measures to the outcomes. Now, yeah. I think AI is going to make that much easier, because you've got AI that now can look at your analytics in terms of user behavior and give you much more robust. Because we've got to stop looking at clicks and likes and click-throughs and how many views and things like that. They're irrelevant information. They feel good because they're numbers, but it's the old PR way of looking at things. Now we've really got to go, well, is this communication resonating with the audience? If it is, what are they doing as a result of it? What does that action do in terms of business outcome or business result? And I think that's where we've got to move them. Now, I was just talking to an organization a couple of weeks ago that called Traffic AI here in Australia, and they're looking at tools now, or they've implemented tools where it's agnostic to everything else that's happening in the organization. So it's not the analytics coming out of a specific tool. It's a tool that looks at all your systems, and it starts bringing back data that starts telling you about your audience behavior across a number of channels, what people are actually engaging with, how long do they spend there. And they've started creating these dashboards that talk about return of investment for communication. This is how long somebody's spending in an area, this is where they're referring to, or even things like this is their purchase power, all of those sorts of things, and bringing it back to you in one dashboard. So these, I think the future is about tools that are bringing that information to you, so you've got control over those outcome-based measures.
So my next question was about how do we trust the data, and you've kind of answered it in have a variety of sources and look for the common threads and themes, and especially have agnostic data. But we live in a world of misinformation and mistrust. Adrian, you've got your facts, and I've got my facts, right? And my facts are going to be better than your facts.
We're not going to talk about Donald Trump facts, are we?
Well, or Democratic facts, right? Or Kamala Harris facts. I'm agnostic on that. So let me shift it to more of a human perspective then, because I think the answer is get your numbers from a variety of sources and look for the common threads. How do we overcome the human tendency to mistrust the data? If your information doesn't agree with what I've already concluded, Adrian, you've made a mistake. You've got it wrong.
I think there's a key word here, and it's transparency. The reality is we will not trust the data because we are not actually in a trusting environment, because there are far too many examples where the data has been wrong or the facts have been wrong. I think the turning point will be when we are much more open and transparent about the information and where it is coming from, and the sources of where it's coming from, helps people be much more informed and feel a bit more secure in that data. I don't think we can ever blindly just accept that the data is right unless we know where it's coming from and the sources of where it's coming from. And I think that's the key now, is transparency and open communication around things like AI. And I'll give you a little example. One of the things we often toy with is, when we do images, and now AI can generate kind of any image you want, right? And literally anything from deepfake. But just making sure that we are letting people know it is from AI automatically gives the context. Not that you shouldn't trust it, but you acknowledge that's where it's created from. So rather than feeling misled, you feel informed about where that data is coming from.
How do executives hire PR leaders and junior level PR people? Has that changed? Will they be looking for different skills, different attitudes, different fit?
I think so. Has it changed? Probably not right now. Should it change? Absolutely, it should. Because there will be this need for more advisory type skills, interrogation skills, as in deep thought, interrogating things like data. Are we looking for people with great writing skills anymore? Personally, I don't think so. But being able to sort out context and sort out, is this the right audience? Is this hitting the right mark? So I think a lot more of that strategic skill is needed, and that's what they need to hire. When we went through the era of social media, they wanted to hire a lot more communication professionals with the technical background. that's no longer as relevant now, because technology doesn't actually matter. It's become very user friendly now. It's actually back to the humanistic skills and the people skills that we're trying to go for.